Welcome to the Mindfulness of Singing, and I'm Denise, your sassy, spunky scientist.
And I'm Tony, your bubbly, big-hearted flower child.
Our podcast features practical tips and tools for a journey of transformation using the healing power of your voice.
Each podcast, we will delve into the mind, body, and spirit connection by interviewing inspirational guests, sharing personal stories, and discussing the most recent scientific research.
Tune in and join our community of mindful singers.
Hello, here we are together again, and we'd like to share kind of an intimate story. As we said last week, I'm here helping Denise in her recovery from surgery, and I kind of had an epiphany the other night, and I hope it.
She has a lot of epiphanies. She had an epiphany in the last one too.
I do. I'm prone to have epiphanies, but anyway,
This one didn't happen in the shower.
it did not. It happened. I was helping her with physical therapy, and we were chatting as we usually do. And I said something about my grandmother's death, and she said, "Oh, yes, I remember that." And after we finished, I got to thinking about all the things that we have shared over the decades together and how many people really know me the way Denise does. And it kind of went down a rabbit hole about friendships, and they're really a sacred thing to be treasured. And if you've been fortunate enough to have a friend that's helped you through divorce and loss of loved ones, that's another loss, and joys and births of children, you're really lucky. And so what does all of that have to do with mindfulness of singing? Well, I would say a lot, because sometimes we think, especially if we're really career driven, we're competitive, and this person's a singer, and there's conflict. But I'm sure glad that you and I, being friends in grad school, didn't let
Two sopranos
who were in opera camp together, and that, when you're in the trenches, that's when you bond. But we could have let that be something that kind of came between us, and instead here we are decades later, still friends, and it's a gift, a real gift. And so there aren't many people that I would feel comfortable having in my home to cook and clean and take care of me and help me the way that I have for you. And so I'm glad, Denise, that I've been able to do this, and I'm going to get a
This
little
is sweet.
So, and in this day and age, when we think that friendships are based on the number of friendships we have on social media, that's not real life. This is real life. And so if you have one, treasure it, invest in it. If you're a singer who's in school and you see somebody that you click with, hold on to that. I want to tell my daughter, hold on to those friendships, because we think that they'll last for a lifetime, but 1 in 12 friendships actually will survive the long haul. And so jump in there, and Denise, and what would you add to all that about the value of friendship related to the mindfulness of singing?
No, I think it's really important. I think that, when you are in school and you're trying to have a career as a singer, you sometimes look around your music department and perhaps your voice faculty doesn't get along, and that may make you think that you can't have friends that are singers, that there's this world of scarcity, that if somebody else gets an audition, it means it's not going to happen for you. And if you can see past that and look past that and realize that it's not a world of scarcity, that you have to make your own experiences and your own opportunities, and especially in this day and age of singing, and that more than likely you're an original. No one's going to sing exactly like you. No one's going to sound exactly like you. No one's going to look exactly like you. You're an original as a singer. And if that's not what they're looking for, but instead they're looking for a 5'7" redhead and not a 5'2.5", that half is important, 5'2.5" coloratura, that doesn't mean that you're less than, or it doesn't mean that she's better. I think the world of comparison and comparing ourselves is really caused our society some real mental illness. And I think a lot of that can happen in a music school, where you're like comparing yourself to all the singers around you. and that can make people mentally and emotionally unwell, and it can make you put up walls and not make those important friendships and make those important connections. And I don't mean important for your career, although that does happen.
Yeah.
But I mean, I've had a lot of relationships. A lot of the singing gigs that I've had over my lifetime have been people who knew me in school or saw me at an opera camp or saw me at a thing that I'd gone to for training, and connections that I made there. I'm not saying that. I'm saying the more important thing is not the connections you make for your career, but the connections you make for your lifetime, because you are not your voice. You are not your career. Both of those things will end. And when you look around the room, what do you want to see there? The bridges that you burned, the friendships that you failed to follow through with, or do you want to see the people that really have brought a richer experience, a better experience? And I mean, Tony and I have been able to help each other. She more than me, but she's come to where I am when I teach sometimes, and I'm like, do some yoga voice with them because I can't seem to get through to this particular student or whatever. And she'll work a little bit, and she'll have a different way of saying exactly what I've been trying to say, but it'll be different. And they'll make some sort of progress, or it'll click, and they'll be like, oh my gosh, this is what you meant. Yep. And so, having someone that you can also say, hey, what do you think about this vocal technique? Or what do you think about this? What about the breath here? Do you think that this is having someone that you can talk to that's not a competitor or someone who's going to prove you wrong and about voice? It's really important, I think, to be able to move beyond those things and get out of the little things, the things that make us small in spirit, the things that the ego, for sure, the ego is it's a problem, but for all of us. But to instead see the commonality, see the things you have in common. Yeah, if you have music in common, you have so many things in common, more than your differences probably. And embracing those differences and being able to be happy
for the other's success.
I mean, when Tony was successful, had a
breakthrough
or whatever, or was going to Israel to sing or what, I was happy for her. And when I had, something good that happened to me, she was happy for me.
Absolutely.
We've been able to do what a lot of musicians, especially in the singing world, can't or aren't sure about how to do or how to navigate, because they've often had poor modeling on their own, within their own music departments, poor modeling for that.
Right. And I'd say one of the things that when I went down the rabbit hole looking to see how many people have long-term friendships that last a decade, it even gave tips, because it is such a rare thing. And one of the things, this is no shocker, but communication. And that doesn't mean that Denise and I haven't had bumps in the road too, where we've gotten our feelings hurt, but we're willing to say it's valuable enough to me. We've got too many years, too much investment. And now it doesn't even, we know each other. We know our quirkiness, but I know I need to give her space. She does not need all this energy before she has her coffee in the morning. I know that, but that comes from decades of knowing someone, and you don't get there overnight. And I guess I just would say, encourage, if you're young, hold on to those beautiful friendships that are a gift, because someday, decades down the road, you may need somebody to take care of you. And not for selfish reasons, to take care of you, but life is more than our competitiveness or our ego. And if you're older, why not start a support group for singers? Why not have your own group of, hey, let's share, let's learn from each other, let's be willing to be vulnerable and say, what can you tell me about my
absolutely.
performance?
And when I taught at the University of Toledo, one of the things, I've talked a lot about, hey, if you are a difficult person, if you are not a kind person, if you're not, I'm not saying you can't have an opinion, and I'm not saying that you can't be blunt, because Lord knows I can be blunt. Yeah. but it matters and I've had moments where I've been unkind as a teacher. I know that, but if you can remember to try to be kind, to each other as students, that you can build some really good relationships going forward. But I also told students that when you go to an opera company or you go to that thing or you're part of that organization, and if you're difficult and snarky and
It's
all of
going to
that,
get around.
well, they're not going to care how well you sing. They're just not. They want people.
Too many of us.
There are too many of us. So, and one of the things that that group of singers did, they started in our recital hall. All the chairs were red, and so they started a red chair ensemble.
Nice.
Which was hilarious. And
the Red Hat Society,
and it was the best singers. It was the best singers. They could have been really competitive and said, I'm not doing that. I'm not singing with her. She's my competition. But they didn't do that. They started their red chair ensemble, and they went to churches, and they did concerts on town. They went to the art museum. They did all of those things. They made a little money. They planned it. They marketed it. They did all of that themselves. And to this day, they're all still really great friends.
That's
and
beautiful.
Have stayed up with each other. So even though several of their lives have taken really different paths, but they managed, and it's because they saw beyond that competitive, the tendency to think small and to let's face it, we're human. Our tendency is to be small, and the tendency to think, well, if I sing with them, people will think that, and compare yourself. They're going to think they're better. What if their high notes are better? What if they look better? What if they're this better? What if I'm not as good? What if they did a bit? All of those things that go on in our head sometimes that make us insecure. And instead they leaned on each other, worked together, and had this really amazing experience of their senior year with the Red Chair ensemble. So
that's beautiful.
I think
the reminder is we're all in this together. And if you want to be a singer, you can build your own community. And it takes being vulnerable. I think we've both had to be vulnerable with each other. But man, has it been worth it?
Yes, absolutely. And I would say, as a word of encouragement, if you're a student and you're in a situation where you're at a school where the teachers don't get along, I'm so sorry. That's a really sucky position to be in. Tony and I were in a position
we've seen that.
We've seen it, and it
can be really ugly.
It can be really ugly, but it also makes you feel vulnerable as a student, and it's not right. But as a student, if you're there, you have to make the best of it, whatever. I would say try to rise above it and not put a lot of stock in what's happening around you, especially if these are adults that you look up to and love, but know that they are also humans, and humans are flawed.
And if there's not somebody in your singing community that you can connect with, you can build friendships outside of that can support you in your singing. In fact, I'll brag on Denise. Really super stoked and excited for her because she's doing something that she's always wanted to do. And she showed me a little video. What if I say now that I've already put it out there?
Oh my gosh, this brings me so much joy. It's hilarious. Go ahead.
Well, I said the other night, we were pointing out that I tend to speak louder when I speak in Italian because it brings me so much joy. And Denise said, oh, I've got something to share with you that brings me so much joy. And she pulled out her phone and she showed me a great video, 2 great videos of her tap dancing because she's always wanted to tap dance.
I've always wanted to dance in general.
Right,
I wasn't allowed because it was against
right,
the religion.
Right. So my point is, if you aren't getting the support in your singing community, find somebody else that still can support you in doing that. And, I'm not threatened by her tap dancing. I have no desire to tap dance. She will speak Italian with me because she speaks too, but she doesn't care that I rattle on. Sometimes I can be annoying because I keep speaking Italian when someone is not. But the point is, find a sense of community and connection in the singing world because it will help you be more mindful of your own singing, and the life is more than that.
And you never know, you might write a book and start a podcast with that person.
In fact, and we'll wrap it up there, I said to Denise, we had lost touch with each other a little bit along the way, and I said, how did we connect?
Pre-Facebook.
And she mentioned it, and I said, hey, this is a gift. We're so lucky to have this. Let's don't let this go. Let's don't lose each other again. And she said, we're bound together now. We've written a book. And a friend of ours said, you guys are something to the effect of entwined like fire. So if you find somebody that you can connect with on that way, hold on to that precious treasure. Like my buddy.
I'd hug her, but I can't.
But she can't. So that's why I'm here. So I'm going to sign off before I cry and tell you to embrace life and love and friendship.
Absolutely.
See you next time.
Bye-bye.
Thank you so much for listening. We are very grateful that you joined us today.
If you like this podcast, please subscribe, write a review, share it with a friend.